Today, we are having a special Nakba session with Omar al-Ghubari regarding the Nakba. We're waiting for more people to join. This is a special session, really to deal with, in my opinion, the roots of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. We can ask Omar if that's the roots. Zionism started before the Nakba, but I think if we didn't have the Nakba, we would not have had 77 years of violence between Palestinians and Israelis. I'm waiting for more people to join, but let me give you a little bio of about Omar. Omar al-Ghubari is a Palestinian lecturer, group facilitator, and a political educator specializing in Palestinian history, identity, the Nakba, and the right of return. Omar works with Zochrot, an NGO based in Tel Aviv that was founded in 2002 to promote acknowledgement, responsibility, and accountability for the Palestinian Nakba and the right of return. He coordinates and leads Nakba and return tours to the destroyed Palestinians locality inside Israel and has written more than 40 booklets documenting their history and current conditions. Just as a sideline, I have taken one of those tours, and it's a fascinating tour of the village of Lifta in Jerusalem. Omar also co-edited two bilingual Arabic Hebrew books. First, Auda, which realistically explores the actual return of Palestinians to their homes, and the second book, Nakba Tours, a guidebook to Palestinian cities, towns, and villages. English title of this book is Once Upon a Land. In 2020, Omar received an award from an American organization, Psychologist for Social Responsibility, for his work with Palestinian refugees who has brought back to their who he brought back to their cities, towns, and villages to reenact their lives before and during the Nakba. Before we turn to Omar, I would like to make an announcement about our upcoming event. We usually have simulations about a federal government. We diverted from our usual practice for the Nakba, which is in my opinion, the most important event in the history of Israel-Palestine, which really we are paying for it heavily and until now. So that's why we diverted from our usual discussion about a confederation government. But on March 8th, we will return. We will have a simulation with Yaakov M. Rapkin, who is a professor of history at the University of Montreal. On March 22nd, we will have Dr. Hussein Al-Dik, a Palestinian researcher, academic, and expert in international relations. And on April 12th, we will have simulation with Elijah Kallenberg and Jad Hashem of Atinda International, uniting Jews, Arabs, Israelis, and Palestinians on college campuses for peace building. This is kind of we've had a simulation with Elijah. Jad was not able to make it due to the severe storm in Texas, and we decided to have another event with both of them so they can debate or discuss the issues that we are presenting. So I'm going to stop sharing my PowerPoint, and I'm going to let Omar share his PowerPoint and commence with his presentation. Hello, Omar. You need to unmute.
Hello, good evening. Thank you very much, Jose, for inviting me. Thanks for your coming to this presentation. So I will share with you my PowerPoint presentation through the explanation what is the meaning of Nakba as part of my work or my role in the organization that Joseph mentioned called Zochrot, based in Tel Aviv, which is an organization that was founded 23 years ago by Israeli Jewish non-Zionist activists in order to raise awareness among the Israeli Jewish society regarding the Palestinian Nakba and the history of the Palestinian people. And maybe the first steps of the Zionist movement in Palestine towards the Nakba that usually we mark in the year of 1948 as the year of the Nakba. But Nakba didn't start in 1948, it started much before. We can maybe discuss that. And it didn't stop or finish in 1948, still ongoing event till today. The same principles, the same ideology, the same approach, the same policy of the Zionist movement and the State of Israel since then till today is almost the same. It's ongoing event because it is just a minute. Just if you can confirm if you see my presentation, please.
Yeah, we can, but if you can make it on a full screen.
Yeah, soon. Yeah. So it's ongoing because of the same ongoing policy, but also because the injustice that had been done by the Zionist movement and the State of Israel to the Palestinian people did not come to end or to justice. I will try to start from the basic things. I assume that some of you already had read or heard about the Nakba and know something about it. I will try to put basic emphasizes and points that I think it's important to remind ourselves on them, and then I will go through the time scale, maybe even maybe till today, as the time will allow us. So the term Nakba is a word in Arabic that means catastrophe, and most of the historians believe that this gentleman, Constantine Zurek, a Syrian historian and diplomatic later, wrote a book in July 1948 about the events that took place in Palestine in 1948. And the title of the book in Arabic is Ma'na Nakba, the meaning of the Nakba. And from his book, I took the title to my lecture. Even we had already some documents from the Israeli army, from the Israeli archives, military documents mentioning the word Nakba in Arabic already in 1948. So the Israelis used the word Nakba maybe at the same time with Mr. Constantine Zurek in 1948. Historians do ask the question when Nakba started, and we don't have a clear answer, but the seeds of the Nakba were already in the vision of the Zionist movement on creating or building a Jewish state in Palestine. People that thought about this idea knew already that will be on the count of the people that live in that place, and it will be followed by violence and crimes against these people. I think it was clear for the Zionist leaders that it will take place somewhere, so they were very well prepared to 1948. Other basic or important historical event that we can see the seeds of the Nakba in is the document that known as Balfour Declaration, the Foreign Minister of Britain in 1917. Even before Britain occupied Palestine from the Ottoman Empire, the occupation of Palestine by the British took place in November 1917, but this declaration was given and published in February 1917. And in this document, the British government promised to facilitate building Jewish home or national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. And at that time, the 95% of the people were Palestinians, or let's say Arab Palestinians, and about 5, 6, 7% of them are Jewish. Despite that, the declaration dealt with the Jewish community as Jewish people, and the 95% of the population had no name in this document. They were mentioned as non-Jewish communities only. We didn't have even any name or definition by the British government. Besides that, these non-Jewish communities will not take, according to this text, national rights. They will have only religious and civil rights, and that's it. So from this approach, we can see already the Palestinians that were not existing in the mind of the British and the Zionist movement at that time. They were not existing through the Zionist propaganda that this land was empty, or land with no people, for people with no land. And they promoted this notion and idea in many ways, even by art. And this is one piece that was drawn by a famous Zionist painter. His name is Nakba Conversation, who came to the area of Tel Aviv and Jaffa in the beginning of the 20th century, 1905, 1906, when some families started to build a neighborhood near Jaffa, was called in Hebrew Achuzat Bayit, and this neighborhood became later the city of Tel Aviv. And in what we see in this photo, the houses of the first houses of Tel Aviv, which is Achuzat Bayit, and the old city of Jaffa, the tower of the St. Peter Church, and sands and empty land between them. This painter, Nakba Conversation, lived in a neighborhood in Jaffa, Jewish neighborhood in Jaffa that called Neve Tzedek, and if he looked from his window, he's supposed to see this view. This empty place that we see in his painting was actually urban, beautiful neighborhood of the Palestinian city of Jaffa. But he decided just to erase that. And when people see that piece that he painted, will think that the land was empty. From the beginning, the Zionist movement talked and discussed the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians, or this term is a modern term. They talked about transferring or taking out Palestinians from the country or from the land of Israel. Theodor Herzl wrote that in his book, The Jewish State, Medinat Yehudim. And other leaders talked about it, and they wrote about it or gave that in their speeches in different occasions. We have really many quotes from the Zionist leaders about the need of transferring Palestinians outside of Palestine, but I picked a few of them. I read just one or two of them, just to have the impression that it was already rooted in the Zionist approach towards the Palestinians. Israel Zangwill, which is a British journalist, influencer in the terms of today, wrote that we must be prepared either to expel with sword the tribes living in the country, as our forefathers did, or to address the question of the migration of the foreign population who are mostly Muslims. Joseph Weiss, one of the leaders of the Jewish National Fund, JNF, in 1940, he wrote, "It should be clear among ourselves that there is no place in the land for both peoples together. The only solution is land for Israel, at least western part or western Israel, which is only Palestine with no Jordan, with no Arabs. There is no room for compromise here, and there is no other way but to move the Arabs from here to the neighboring countries, to move everyone except perhaps from Bethlehem, Nazareth, and all Jerusalem. This is because of the sensitivity with Christianity, with Europe. Do not leave any village, not one tribe, etc." Ber Katzenelson, who was considered as a Zionist liberal at that time, he also in 1937 said, "I have long believed that this is the best solution. I believe and still believe that they will move to Syria and Iraq." So based on this approach, the tension between Palestinians and the Jewish community that mostly was immigrants from the beginning of the 20th century, during the 20s and the 30s, we had some significant clashes in the years of 1920, 21, 29, and of course in 1936, 39, which could be one more historical event that we can see one further step towards the wide Nakba, which is the great revolt that Palestinians started in 1936 against the British colonialism and the Zionist movement. In this event, the British, in order to oppress the revolt, they took a very brutal and aggressive steps against the Palestinians. They destroyed villages, burned villages. They destroyed neighborhoods in important cities like the old city of Jaffa, and they actually took the Palestinian leaders as prisoners. Some of them were killed, and the others were expelled outside of Palestine in order just to oppress the revolt. The British didn't allow national movements and national struggle for the Palestinians. Within this revolt, the idea of partition plan came out by the British government, and they decided, in order to make the situation quiet in Palestine between the Jews and the Palestinians, we offer a political solution, which is partition plan. As we know, the Palestinian side rejected the partition plan from the beginning. I would say I would not know any people that will agree to this kind of idea. The British don't care; it's not their land, so they said, "Yeah, let's divide." And the Zionist movement didn't have much of the land at that time, so they said, "Okay, let's start from something." And they said formally, yes, but practically, we will see that they didn't mean that. They didn't mean to stop by the partition plan. So the first partition plan was offered in 1937, and it's known as the Peel Committee partition plan, which is this one. And there were other two offers, one of them in 1946, American and British offer. And the last one that we are familiar with is the partition plan that was approved in 1947, November 29th, 47, in the United Nations. This partition plan gave 55% of the land to the Jewish minority, that were about 600,000 Jews, and gave 43% to the Palestinians, that were about 1.3 million, and they kept about 2% as international zone, which is Jerusalem, Bethlehem as holy places. By the way, inside the Jewish state, which is offered according to this plan, 46% of the population was Palestinian. So even in this plan, there is no Jewish majority. And in any partition, in any constellation of partition, you will not have Jewish majority in Jewish states. So in one hand, if we look at this map, we can see even if the Palestinians will accept that, it's not fair. It's not really smart and applicable. You can see the two states are divided to 3 or 4 pieces. The Palestinian one, or the Arab state, was divided to 4 pieces. The big parts in the gray colored spots, and also one smaller spot, which is Jaffa near Tel Aviv, supposed to be part of the offered Arab states, but it's kind of enclave in the offered Jewish state. It's disconnected of the other Arab parts in the Arab states. And it was not democratic. When the committee came to Palestine and they checked what the people that live in this place think about partition plan, the majority said no. Most of the Palestinians, except 2 small groups, the Communist Party and a big family in Jerusalem that called Nashashibi, and some of the Zionists said no. Some of them from the right-wing extreme group of Jabotinsky and the Irgun and the other extreme right groups, but also some liberal and leftist Zionists like Martin Buber, a movement that called Brit Shalom, and Ahad Am, and other smaller groups. Of course, the Jewish Orthodox community in Jerusalem was from the beginning against Jewish state. Even the rabbi of the Jewish Orthodox community that called Rabbi Israel Dehan was murdered by the Haganah of David Ben-Gurion in 1924 when he planned to fly to London in order to give a speech against the Jewish state. So it's a question just that we should ask: why the United Nations, why Britain, why the West pushed towards this solution, despite the fact that the majority of the population were against? What is amazing that in 1937, 2 important leaders of the Zionist movement, David Ben-Gurion, that became the first prime minister, and Chaim Weizmann, that became the first president of Israel, they both wrote in 1937, following the Peel Committee partition plan, 2 texts. In my eyes, they are amazing texts, but unfortunately, we don't learn that in the Israeli curriculum. I grew up inside the Israeli educational system, and I have never heard about this, what I'm going to tell you. And even my Israeli colleagues and friends and activists that I met, they never learned about it in the schools. In 1937, David Ben-Gurion was criticized by his colleagues in the Zionist movement because he said, yes, he was positively answering the committee of Peel offer. And then he explained why he said yes. And he wrote in Hebrew a letter to his son, Amos Ben-Gurion, that he was against the partition plan. And David Ben-Gurion explained to him that, in my opinion, in my approach, the partial Jewish state is not the end, it's just the beginning. We will bring to the country as much as possible Jewish from the Jews from the world. We will create strong Jewish economy, strong army, and then I'm sure that no one will stop us of controlling the other parts of the land or the country. It could be with understanding with our Arab neighbors or in another way. So this was written already in 1937. When he agreed in 1947 to the partition plan, he already had another plan to control the other parts of the country. Similar things wrote Chaim Weizmann. He wrote that in the end of the day, I'm sure that we will take in heritage the whole country or the whole land. Even if the partition plan will be approved in the coming days, means years, we will expand all over the country. It's just an arrangement for 25 to 30 years. And he was correct. He wrote that in 1937 and 1967, 30 years after the Israelis actually controlled the all parts of Palestine with the occupation of the West Bank and Gaza. What is important in the events around the partition plan, that the Zionist groups, including the Haganah of David Ben-Gurion, did not stop their occupations or their control on the lines that the United Nations gave to the Jewish state according to the partition plan. They continued to occupy more and more pieces from the offered Arab state. And of course, Jerusalem, that was not part of the Jewish state, according to this map, was targeted by David Ben-Gurion as a place that should be occupied immediately. So attacks on Jerusalem, and you notice if you look at the map in your left, you will see that Jerusalem is in the middle of the offered Arab state. And if you want to come from the Jewish state to occupy Jerusalem, you have also to occupy more and more pieces from the offered Arab state. And this is what happened, and this is what David Ben-Gurion did. And he occupied the area between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. The first attacks on Jerusalem took place already in December 1947, January 1948, February, March. In March 1948, all the area that is known today as West Jerusalem was already occupied by the Zionist groups. It's yet not the State of Israel. It's before the creation of the State of Israel. What is interesting to ask all the time, how come 95% of these occupations of the Haganah or the Irgun or the Stern gangs, and later on by the Israeli army, how these occupations ended most of the time with the expulsion of the population, with the civilians, with the families. It was not, let's say only, but I can say it was not security issue or security need only, but also to take the opportunity and to expel as much as people from the lands that will be controlled by the State of Israel. As much as possible land with the less number of people, of Palestinians. The next point, the expulsion of Palestinian populations and communities was done already in December 47 and afterward. And in May 14th, the day of the declaration of the State of Israel, was the date that the British left Palestine, but till that time they didn't take any step to defend the Palestinians or to prevent their expulsions. Till that date, 40% of the Palestinian expulsions were already done before the declaration of the State of Israel, till May 14th. In May 15th, the formal war between Israel and the Arab countries started. Before that, none of the Arab countries sent any soldier to Palestine. So the myth or the argument that expulsions or Palestinians flee took place because of the war against the Arab countries is not true, because the expulsion started 6 months before the formal war started. In the end of the war, even this intervention of the Arab countries didn't help the Palestinians. And Israel, instead of taking the 55% of the partition plan for the Jewish state, it managed to expand that and to occupy 78% of Palestine. The war stopped by the United Nations during the 1949 and agreements that known as Rhodes agreements were signed between Israel and the Arab countries that took part in the war. By the way, except Iraq. Iraq just left, the Iraqi army left Palestine without signing any agreement with Israel till today, by the way. And the 4 other countries, Lebanon, Syria, Egypt, and Jordan, signed that agreement that said, okay, this is the area that the Israelis occupied will stay under its control, and the line of the occupations will be the line between Israel and the Palestinians, but it's not the border. It's just till the final agreement, which is known as the Green Line. The Green Line formally is not the border of the State of Israel. It's just the ceasefire or armistice line. What is amazing in this agreement that the United Nations didn't ask Israel to withdraw to the lines of the partition plan, either the Arab countries. The United Nations even didn't demand Israel to give back the area that's supposed to be international zone, because parts of Jerusalem that were occupied by the Israeli side are supposed to be international zone, which means no one actually followed or acknowledged the partition plan. The first one that didn't acknowledge on the ground, didn't follow on the ground the partition plan was David Ben-Gurion himself. So what I say that the expulsion of the Palestinians did not happen because the Palestinians rejected the partition plan, because it was planned already from the beginning of Zionism. The occupations of hundreds of Palestinian villages was known by the leaders of the Haganah already many years before 1948. Even in 1940, the Haganah, the David Ben-Gurion organization, had an intelligence department that called in Hebrew Shin Yud, intelligence, yeah, information or service. And they collected information about 1,000 Palestinian towns and villages between 1940 till 1947. And they said, and it's written in the website of the Palmach, one of the brigade that was active before 1948. It's certainly clearly that this information was collected on the Arab enemy for the day of command. So it was already planned and known many years before that they will occupy the villages and the towns of the Palestinians. Even after the war was ended and the ceasefire was signed between Israel and the Arab countries, some Palestinian communities had been expelled after that. One more proof that the expulsion did not happen because of the war. After the war ended, Palestinians from the village of Zakaria, which is near Beit Shemesh in these days, who knows the area, the Palestinians in Majdal, which is Ashkelon, were expelled in 1950 and 51. 3 villages, Yitzhak Rabin himself expelled in the north to Syria, and many Bedouin Palestinian communities had been expelled in the 60s outside of the border of the country to the West Bank or to Sinai or to Jordan or even to Gaza. To conclude this part of the occupations and the attacks on Palestinian communities, till the middle of 1949, we can say that 750,000 Palestinians, a little bit more, had been expelled from the area that became the State of Israel. It's important to see the lines of this geographic place. In the green line, let's say that like this, supposed to live in 1948-49 about 900,000 Palestinians. More than 750,000 of them had been expelled, which means more than 87% of the population had been expelled. This will not happen by mistake or because the Palestinians didn't want to stay. It was systematic and needed. By the way, I believe the Zionist leaders, it was needed. There is no way to create Jewish state with Jewish majority without expulsion of the majority of the Palestinians. And because of that, it was done. Those 750,000 became refugees, some of them in the West Bank, in Gaza Strip, in Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Egypt. They lived in about 600 Palestinian towns and villages that all of them had been taken, controlled, captured by the Israelis, and later on, more than 95% had been destroyed totally or erased from the landscape. Inside Israel, some 100,000 Palestinians remained inside the borders, inside the Green Line. In Rhodes Agreement, Israel asked Jordan that there was a piece of land that was attacked in 1948, but the Israelis didn't have time to occupy that. So they asked that from Jordan to annex it to the State of Israel. In the end of the day, the Jordanians agreed, and this land that known as the Triangle here in Israel, it's west to Jenin, was annexed to Israel in 1949, not occupied in 1948. But in the agreement, Jordan asked not to expel the people of this area. So this area was annexed to Israel with about 35,000 people. Some thousand Palestinians had been entered the country in different ways. So let's say that inside Israel in 1949, about 150,000 Palestinians became the citizens of the State of Israel. But among them, about 25% of them are actually refugees. They are known as IDPs, internal displaced people. Despite the citizenship that they got from the State of Israel, Israel didn't allow them to return to their original homes and villages. Even they live just 5 minutes away from the original place. They're known, considered as absentees according to the Israeli law. The area that I mentioned as the triangle that was annexed to Israel in 1949 includes my home village. From a village that's called Musherfi, south to Nazareth, about 25 kilometers south to Nazareth. The closest village that had been occupied in 1948, called al-Lajun, was central and big one. By the way, it's the village of my grandfather, from my mother's side. They had been expelled, but they moved to another Palestinian town that called al-Fahm, that is located in this area that was annexed to Israel in 1949. My village was attacked, and how the Israelis did in hundreds of Palestinian villages, they usually surrounded the village from 3 directions, and they kept one direction for the people to flee. So they kept the east open in order to push the people towards the West Bank, which is Jenin, the closest big city to my home village. For some reason, the people didn't reach Jenin. They stayed among the trees and inside the caves for about 6 weeks. And they sent some young men every few days to check what is going in the village. And they had been reported that no one is there. The Israelis bombed the village and some houses had been damaged. They took the animals, the cows and the goats, and they vandalized the food and the stuff inside the houses, and that's it. They are not there. So 6 weeks after that attack, the families returned to the village, renovated the houses, and lived in the houses. And as I said, in May 1949, suddenly they see Israeli army. They didn't see that before. And the Israeli army announced to them that from today, you are under the Israeli government. And this is the reason why we were not expelled from our home villages. We'll get back to the Palestinians in Israel, what happened to them in 1948. But before that, I would like to emphasize that the expulsion of Palestinians had done in systematic way, not because of the war or the situation and the conditions during the war. And the Israelis insisted to expel communities even in quiet days when some Palestinian communities felt that the situation allowed them to go back because there's no war or clashes or tents or anything there. And some attempts and some Palestinians actually returned to their places. And then the Israeli army sent the troops again to expel them again from these villages. These 2 documents are rare documents from the Israeli army archive, talking about 2 cases, one in the south of the country, one in the north. And they talk about civilians or villagers, not about armed groups or soldiers, just families or civilians that return to the village of Hunin, which is close to the border with Lebanon. And the mission of the army is to attacked the village of Hunain, the Palestinian village of Hunain. I'm translating from Hebrew, to kill number of the men, to take prisoners, to blow up some of the houses of the village, and to burn what is possible to burn in order to prevent their return if they will try once again. The second document talk about the area which is known in these days as the envelope of Gaza, which is amazing how it is connected to the current situation in these days, in the last 2 years. The document says that some refugees, Arab refugees, coming back from Gaza towards villages in the south of Gaza, which is actually the original villages that had been expelled from during 1948, and they give the list of the names of these villages. All of them are erased and destroyed villages inside the green line of today, inside Israel, like Hamami, Jora, Ne'lia, Algiya, Barbara, etc. On these villages' lands, there are Israeli settlements or kibbutzes or moshavs that are known, as I said, in the area of the envelope of Gaza, and the names of these towns were repeated many times in the news in the last two years. In this document, the same order saying that to expel them again to Gaza Strip, and to burn the villages, to demolish the houses, and even to mine the path that they did in order to prevent their return if they will try again. The Palestinians in Israel that I mentioned 2 minutes before, most of them lived in villages. They were actually land farmers, land owners. A small number of them survived the expulsion of the big cities, or some of the big cities. For example, in Jaffa, among 120,000 Palestinians that lived in the city and the villages around the city, only 4,000 survived. In Haifa, among 70,000, only 3,000 survived. About 2,000 in Acre, 1,000 in Lid, 1,000 in Ramli. All these small group of survivors had been concentrated in one neighborhood in the city, and they were surrounded with a fence, with gate, with soldiers for about 1.5 to 2 years. This closed area was known as the ghetto. And this photo that we see over here is from the ghetto of Ajami, ghetto of Jaffa. We already see Israelis use the Palestinian stores and houses. They actually look at the enclaved Palestinians inside the ghetto. I thought most of the time that the word ghetto was kind of slogan for the people to describe how bad it was, but actually it's an official term that the Israelis used in their documents. If you see on your right, this is a file, a cover of a file from the Israeli archive, and it's written in Hebrew by the Ministry of Minorities. This is the ministry that Israel created in order to take care of the Palestinians in Israel, Minority Ministry. And the title of the file is Transferring Arabs to the Security Zone to the Ghetto. So they actually use that already in Hebrew. The other Palestinians in the villages, in wide areas, one of them the Triangle and the Galilee, and of course the Naqab, the Negev in the south, had been living under military regime from 1948 till 1966. which is amazing thing that on one side you give a citizenship and then the other side military regime. The idea of expulsion of the Palestinians that became citizens of Israel didn't stop by giving the citizenship or creating the state of Israel. In this document that was released from the Israeli archives just 2 years ago, there was a discussion in the dominant party in 1950 that composed the government of Israel, and Moshe Dayan that became defense minister and in the Israeli government in the 60s. He was officer in the army, and he said in that meeting, actually he admits that the discussion was about transferring the Palestinians from the state of Israel, and he said that I think or I see that the issue that we discuss should be targeted or should be aimed that the Arabs that live in Israel or their living or their status in Israel is not fixed, it's not the end. I hope in the coming years that we will have one more opportunity to make transfer to those Arabs from the land of Israel. And he spoke about 170,000 Arabs, which is the number of the Arabs inside Israel in 1950. So under this traumatic event and fear of transfer and a new colonial regime, different language, losing their identity, the majority of their people, the Palestinians in Israel lived as I said, on one side as citizens, but actually under threat by the new state or the Israeli government. The policy towards them, which was really catastrophe for them, is the confiscation of their lands. As I said, 90% of the Palestinians in Israel are farmers. By the way, Israel destroyed all the Palestinian cities that's supposed to be inside the state of Israel before the creation of the state of Israel. In April, Haifa and Jaffa and Tiberias and Safad were totally destroyed. In July, when Lid and Ramli were occupied, 95% of the people were expelled, and the city as Palestinian city or as an Arab city was destroyed. No Arab cities inside Israel. Nazareth became the only town that Israel didn't expel for different reasons. One of them because of the connection to Christianity, and Europe became the most important city inside Israel, but it was not the most important one before 1948. So the farmers that remained inside Israel, they lived for generations with cultivating and working on their own lands. Israel confiscated more than 95% of the lands of these people and forced them to look for new jobs and new positions. And what was available at that time is to work in building towns and cities for the new population, for the Israelis. And this is what most of the men of my family did from the 50s till the 80s. So just to realize how these people lived under this new regime, and later on there were also attacks on Palestinian villages inside Israel. One of the famous massacres that the Israelis did to Palestinian citizens was in 1956 in the town that called Kufr Qasim or Kafr Qasim. About 50 people, 48 citizens had been fired by the Israeli army. In 1976, the Palestinians in Israel demonstrated against the confiscation of their lands, and then the Israeli police brutally tackled these demonstrations, killing 6 people in March 30 that became the land day of the Palestinians. It started in the Galilee inside Israel. And of course, during the Second Intifada in 2000, 13 Palestinians had been killed by the Israeli police. That so these all events and this long term of policy against the Palestinians in Israel, just to emphasize that the being citizen in Israel didn't really change much the approach or the racism against the Palestinians in general, including the Palestinians in Israel. Some of the Palestinian villages and towns that had been expelled were used by the Israelis for different purposes. Some of them were settled by Jewish families, like you see in the photo in your right, Israeli flag on the top of Palestinian village, in Palestinian house in the village that called Sar'a, in order to create a kibbutz that called Sur'a between Ramle and Jerusalem. Some of the houses or the villages were used by the Israeli army for practicing inside these villages. And many of them had been destroyed gradually between 48, mainly till the 60s, and later on, for different reasons, they continue to expel, to destroy more and more houses. So our mission, of course, inside the state of Israel is to prove all these things and to show the people that Palestinian life was dominant and alive before 1948, before Zionism, before the creation of the State of Israel, because most of the Israelis, when they grow up in this country, in the landscape around them, they will not notice any Palestinian identity almost. No Palestinian identity, of course, no Palestinian towns, except those that I mentioned, they survived the expulsions. So we started to use, for example, this map that the Israelis used in the 50s. It's a British map in English, but some new words in Hebrew were added during the 50s. Some of these words are names of new Israeli towns that had been built, but some of them is a word in Hebrew that means destroyed. So this is a village that called Manshia in English. In Hebrew, under that name, I can read in Hebrew the word harus, which is destroyed. So we use these maps as a boomerang in order to show the Israelis how many villages were existing till 1948 in these places. The process of the erasure of the Palestinians didn't stop by expulsion of the people, destruction of their houses and towns, but also erasing the names of the areas and the places from Arabic to Hebrew, usually to connect that to Jewish biblical location or name, or to Zionist modern name, or translating the names from Arabic to Hebrew, or just change a very minor accent to be heard as Hebrew. Like the example over here, the village of Annabi became Anava in Hebrew. The information about the events in 1948, the Nakba, or from the Israeli perspective, let's say the events of 1948 are still closed in the Israeli archive. The mass majority of the files are still closed. 78 years after, the Israelis don't dare to open these files. Some of the files that already had been taken by historians or researchers can teach us a lot of the information that I mentioned, a lot of the Nakba, but this is not the whole files. Unfortunately, we are afraid that the Israeli archives are playing and changing and disappearing some of the files, and of course by that also burying some of the information, which is very important to learn that part of the history. This document, it's the same document with two copies. You look at the number on the top. It's the same one that was used by an Israeli researcher, I think during in the 90s. And few years after that, in 2000 and something, another Israeli researcher asked for the same document, and he found that the new version of the document actually missing about 5, 6 lines on the bottom of the document. These lines talk about raping 4 Arab women by Israeli soldiers and murdering them. So this was already published in the 90s, and some people knew about it and read that, but the archive found that they made a mistake, and then they just erased the lines that talk about that event. So I'm afraid that some of our fight and struggle will be also to get the real information from the Israeli archives. Despite all the efforts of the Israelis to erase and to destroy and to deny the Palestinian life, many of our work, a lot of our work, we find ruins. Sometimes it's clear, like this village of Lifta in the entrance of Jerusalem that Joseph mentioned, and we conducted a tour a few months ago in this village to teach about its history and its expulsion. But there are some cases that most of these houses were actually destroyed, but just few pieces or walls or cemeteries are around the landscape. So go fast with some photos that shows the ruins that we find on the ground, and we try to use them as an evidence for these Palestinian communities. Many of these villages, by the way, are hidden inside the Israeli parks or the JNF forests, among the beautiful green trees. We walk and we expose the ruins of these villages. In some cases, it's more difficult when the eraser was almost perfect. This is the neighborhood that I showed in the beginning in the painting of Nahum Gutman, Manshia of the city of Jaffa, had been occupied and destroyed mostly in 1948, as you see on the photo in your right. And during the 70s, all these houses and rubbles and heritage was erased totally and cleaned up as the Israelis used. And on the top of them, there is a very beautiful, I have to say, park that called Charles Clore Park, and it became part of the promenade of Tel Aviv. So you can see the process from the Palestinian urban life to destruction, to eraser, to colonialism, to beautiful Israeli view that covers actually the real crimes that took place in 1948. But because we have some photos, some documents, and some testimonies, we can also tell the story of the unseen Nakba or unseen ruins of Palestinian places. Among 1,000 holy places, Israel destroyed almost all of them, except about 50 or 60 mosques and shrines that we can see around the country. In the big cities, some like Jaffa, Palestinian community managed to release the mosques after 50 or 60 years of banning them or preventing them of using these mosques. In the others, unfortunately, they are used for different reasons, but not as mosques. It could be closed one, like this one in Akka, in Acre. It could be partly destroyed, like this one shrine and small mosque in the village that called al-Bassa, which is today in the Israeli town that called Shlomi, or this beautiful mosque that is used in these days as a museum for the Israeli town of Kiryat Shmona. This belongs to the Palestinian destroyed village Al-Khalsa. Or in your right, you can see this dome of a mosque that belonged to Wadi Hunain village, and today it's a synagogue in the Israeli town of Ness Zion. Some churches had been destroyed in the village of Al-Berwi, the village of Mahmoud Darwish. The houses and the mosque and the church had been destroyed totally. In the village of Suhmata in the south of the country had been erased. These are three amazing examples of three villages in three expelled Palestinian villages, Ikrit, Kufr Bir'im, and Al-Bassa, partly destroyed, abandoned for many years. These two churches in Ikrit and Kufr Bir'im had been renovated after about 30, 40 years by the local community inside Israel. Now they are standing in good condition and people can come and visit. I think once a month they carry a prayer in these churches. And this one, the big one in your left, just this week, the Palestinian community that was expelled from this village and live in the Galilee had permission 2 days ago to renovate and to clean up this church. And hopefully we will go to visit this church in the very soon and help in cleaning and renovating the church. Some Palestinian schools remained in the destroyed villages, and they are used for different purposes. Like this school in your right from the village of Deir Yassin is used as the Jewish Orthodox movement of Chabad and a synagogue. The other one in your left is the office of the JNF. It belongs to the Palestinian destroyed village of Beit Nabala. Hundreds of graveyards are around the country and unfortunately in very terrible situation. No respect, no protection. Protection, I mean to protect them. Palestinian communities asked to close or to fence these cemeteries, but the authorities in Israel refused. And during the days, and I go around the country, I really see terrible situations and conditions of these graveyards, and they are disappearing with the time, vandalized and destroyed, sometimes by just average people that go there and they don't like the fact to see Palestinian cemeteries and they write racist graffiti, for example, death to Arabs in the cemetery of Deir Yassin, or just destroy stones on your way to picnic, because many of them are in the open spaces and in forests. And in many cases, they don't even notice that these are cemeteries and they just go through with their cars and motors and they destroy on the way without knowing that they are destroying a cemetery. But what is more uprising when you see that the authorities and the institutions and the government of Israel build on the top of the Palestinian cemeteries, and sometimes in very ironic, cynical way. In the left, you can see the students' houses, the dorms in the University of Tel Aviv that had been built just 10 years ago on the top of the cemetery of Sheikh Muannis. By the way, the university was built on the top of the village of Sheikh Muannis, and in the 70s and the 80s, they asked for the area of the cemetery in order to build on the top of the cemetery these buildings. In West Jerusalem, there is a neighborhood that called Mamila. This building that they started to build that 10 years ago, it was finished 1 year ago. They launched that. It is built on the top of a huge and historical Palestinian cemetery. You can see even the tombs over here very close to the wall of the building. Under this building, there were dozens of tombs like that. All of them had been destroyed and erased. And this building was built on the top of them. And this is this institution is called the Museum for Tolerance. By the way, the same cemetery was in half of that was destroyed in the 70s, and the Israeli Independence Park in Jerusalem was built on part of this cemetery. But also around the country, we can see very beautiful Palestinian heritage, beautiful villas and neighborhoods and houses, like these ones from Beersheba in your right. This villa with the many Israeli flags, actually a Palestinian villa that called Harun al-Rashid in West Jerusalem for a family that called Psharat, was used by the Israelis from 1948 till today. Even the Israeli Prime Minister Golda Meir, when she was foreign minister, lived in this villa. These big, beautiful houses and hotels in the city of Tiberias. All these properties were confiscated, appropriated by Israel. And of course, the main important resource for the information is the Palestinian refugees. We meet them, we interview them, we follow them, we go with them to their places, to their original houses. They visit the place, they feel the place, and they tell the story. We record them and we translate that also to Hebrew in order to show the people the real history. We try to document this information in booklets and tours, and sometimes we leave a sign with the original name of the place. Usually these names are not mentioned in any sign or any paper or any map in the Israeli books, on the Israeli documents. We use the original maps in order to publish new maps. This map that we call it the Nakba map includes the names of about 600 Palestinian towns and villages that had been destroyed. And finally, for your smartphones, you can download an app that called iReturn, and it includes the Nakba map in 3 languages with the names of the non-existing Palestinian towns and localities, in addition to the information that you can read about each one of these towns. You can also use it as a GPS. It will take you to a place that is not existing. I will stop here. These slides talk about the vision of the future. Maybe we can talk about it later, but I would stop here because this is the time that was given to me. Thank you very much for now. I hope it was useful.
Excellent job, Umar. Thank you so much. It was
Thank you so
true.
much, Umar. Wonderful. Thank you kindly for a wonderful presentation. Sorry, Joseph.
It was true eye-opener, even to many of us who knew a lot of information, but it really is an eye-opener. So I think we're now, I don't know if Nasir is here. If you want to ask questions and ask Omar some questions. You can raise your hand. Let me Omar, I have a question for you. You said that some of the documents are not released.
Yeah.
And some of them were altered. Uh, do we have any idea of how many documents have not been released?
Not really, but at least one archive that's called the State Archive. Another Israeli organization named Akivot, they made a research about this archive and they published just 1 year ago that 97% of the files are still closed. This is amazing. We still ask what still the Israelis want to hide in this because we think that we know almost everything. Even the massacre of Deir Yassin, which is maybe the only massacre that the Israelis heard about, which is not the only massacre that took place and not the biggest one, but this is the famous one. And many things and many books were written about it by the people that acknowledge that and by people that deny that. And we have testimonies and interviews with refugees and even with Israeli perpetrators. And still, when Israeli film producer called Neta Shoshani made a film a few years ago, she went to the archive to take the documents of Deir Yassin and the photos, and they didn't allow her to do so. She sued the archive in the Israeli High Court. The High Court discussed the issue. The judge asked for the files. He opened them, looked at them, closed them, and said, never. We will not release them. If we open that, it will make kind of noise. It will disturb the relationship of Israel with the international community, and it will make the image of Israel very, very negative.
When was that?
Just 5 years ago.
Wow. Shlomo?
Just a quick note on Ikrit and Biram. The story I remember is that the people were asked to leave, the Palestinians asked to leave, and then they will be able to come back. And so they left and mostly went to Lebanon. And then when they wanted to come back, Golda Meir said no. So.
Yeah, to add to that, just to say that this is two amazing cases. I call them the polite occupation or the polite ethnic cleansing. The Israeli army reached these two villages and the people were there. And the war is almost over. There's no war around them. The Israeli army asked them just to leave just for 2 weeks in order to fix the border with Lebanon, and then they will allow them to return. They asked them to go to Lebanon, but the people were smart and they refused to go to Lebanon. They went to Haifa, to Kufr Yassif, to other towns in the Galilee inside the Green Line, and they waited for the 2 weeks to end till today. The Israeli army didn't allow them to return. They sued the Israeli army in the High Court. They demonstrated and they made a public campaign for their return. Amazing one, by the way. And the Israeli court decided for them that the court doesn't see any reason why these people don't return to their places. So they should be allowed to return, except if there is some security reason. So the army said, yes, there is security reason, and they declared the area as a military zone, and they didn't allow anyone to return. It was in July 50, this court decision. In the December 50, these two villages are Christian villages. And the village of Ekrit, in the Christmas Eve of 1950, people around the area in the Galilee preparing themselves for the parties and the holiday. At the same night, the Israeli army came to the village of Ekrit and destroyed all the houses. to prevent them to return and, of course, to make that. But this is one more example of the cynical way how they can make this painful step to make that really painful to the people, the owners of the houses, to destroy that specifically in their holiday of Christmas. And the same, the Kufr Bal'am villages, the houses are mostly destroyed. And as I said, their return was not allowed since then. But the exception thing that just the church and the cemetery were released after the military regime in the early 70s. They renovated that. And these the only two cases that Palestinian community of IDPs can use the original cemetery. And because of that, the people of Ikrit and Kufur Bir'im say our return is implemented only when we are die. When we die, when we are dead.
And you know why now they are allowed to return? Because there is a lot of noise in the United States. The Christians, the community, especially, a guy like Tucker
Yeah.
Carlson came in, and so they make a lot of noise about the mistreatment of Christians in Palestinian Christians. So they step back and said, okay, let's improve because that's the relationship with the United States. It is serious. Anyway,
That's right. I don't see any option that they will allow the return of these two villages
Libby?
because of that.
Thank you, Umar, for this really powerful and meaningful story. I have a question about how far wide it has been communicated, because I live here in California. I'm part of a Jewish-Palestinian dialogue group. And when the Jews enter into the group, it's surprising how many had no idea about the Nakba, none whatsoever. It's like a shock to them. And they have to hear the whole story to begin to absorb it and think about it. And it made me wonder how you can spread this amazing PowerPoint that you've put together that seems very legitimate, very historic, very important, into the broader community, the grassroots community in Israel. And it's our job to see how we can spread the word here as well and get more people aware of this. But I do wonder, when we talk about on educational processes in Israel and trying to tell both stories equally in the school system, how are you able to use this beautiful PowerPoint in the school system to educate more broadly the grassroots in Israel?
Well, first of all, for any organization or group that want to be educated more and to know more, they can use our website. It's in 3 languages, and all the information that I presented almost are also in our website. You are welcome and invited to use that and to download freely whatever you want. The other thing here on the ground, we are not allowed, unfortunately, to enter the Israeli schools. We do kind of public education. We organize once a month an open tour, and we invite people to come and to take part in the tour, for example. I have to say that most of the participants, that usually between 40, 50 people, most of them are Israelis. So they can come, and if they are interested, and they can learn through the tours that we organize. And as I said, all the information is available in the website. We invite people to take part in our courses or workshops, to join our community, or to participate the events. It's not only tours. We organize webinars and lectures and conferences and other things. But it's not easy to act here in the Israeli atmosphere. We do our best, and we still maintaining at least our tours and courses, but not in the official Israeli frames, like schools, for example. Sometimes some brave teachers or directors invite me to make a tour for students. So I meet them outside of the school, and we do a tour, and I give them the lecture, actually field lecture about the Nakba. But it happens just 2-3 times a year. It's not so common because they are afraid. The teachers are under threat. They are not allowed to use the Nakba material in their schools. And someone wrote that it's not against the law. By the way, no, it's not against the law. The law, the Nakba law, there is a Nakba law. That the Israeli parliament legislated 2000 and I forgot the year. The discussion around the law was very terrorizing and wider than the law itself. Many people think that they are not allowed to talk about the Nakba, and everything that mentioning the Nakba is against the law. The truth is not like that. The law says that you are not allowed to use money state in order to commemorate the Nakba in the Independence Day of Israel. That's it. Everything that we do, because otherwise they should stop us in our activism. It's still allowed to talk about the Nakba and to make events about the Nakba and to mention the Nakba. Even in the schools, you are allowed by law to mention or to teach about the Nakba, but the students and the parents will not allow you. I know 2 or 3 examples of teachers that had been fired just because the students complained for their parents about the teacher. And then he or she were questioned and fired from the school.
Nasir?
Thank you. Thanks, Joseph. Thank you, Omar, for the presentation. It's good to hear. I have a question. When we were talking about the Nakba being difficult to teach, it's a taboo subject in the schools. But what about, for example, like your status? You're a citizen, correct? You're a citizen from a
Yes.
citizen of Israel.
Yes.
So one thing that, like me, for example, my family's from Beit Hanina, and we were the ones who lost our Hawiyah. So we don't have a right anymore to live in Beit Hanina. So we can come as tourists, as U.S. citizens. And one thing that we're facing is that our work to bring awareness to these issues, and we don't even approach it from a radical point of view. We none of us are politically active. We don't belong to any organizations that call for violence or anything. And me in particular, the organizations I work with are dialogue groups, and that call for coexistence. But we're seen as a threat. We come to the airport and we're rejected at the airport. So it started with oppressing the people who live in the occupied territories. Then it extended to the people, the foreign people, foreign Palestinians who get harassed at the airport and denied entry to and blocked to come to the country for 10 years. And now we're seeing it come to the Arab Palestinian citizens of Israel. And it seems the more that we do to bring about awareness and education, the more repression we get. Like now, for example, especially after October 7th, Palestinian teachers are being harassed if they just express any type of sympathy toward Palestinian civilian deaths in Gaza. So how do you deal with this? How do you approach this? Do you yourself feel threatened? And even now there's talks that the law may change to strip Palestinians of citizenship if they are associated with anything that challenges the domination of the Jewish identity of Israel.
Well, let's start from the end. I don't feel any threat to the citizenship of the Palestinians in Israel. It's more complicated for the Israelis to take citizenship of citizen, just in very extreme situations that even those Palestinians that took part in violent actions against Israel, the citizenship they didn't lose. So it's not that threat. But I have to say that I act in very low profile in my social media pages. Of course, in the last 2.5 years, I'm aware that dozens of my friends and colleagues, Palestinian citizens, were arrested and questioned and jailed just because they wrote a post in Facebook on social media, as you mentioned, mentioning Gaza or any sympathy or any solidarity with the people of Gaza, even in the human level. They don't talk about any political thing, just in a human living. The situation is very, very, very bad in this level. Still, I don't know how to say that because sometimes I'm ashamed to say that. If I would do this job and this activism that I do and these lectures um, within a Palestinian Arab NGO inside Israel, this NGO will be disturbed and stopped maybe many years ago. Just because this organization is protected by Tel Aviv and it's under the radar and under the light, we manage to do what we do, and we have strong lawyers around us, and people support us. So we managed to do that. On the ground, for the first 6 months after October 7th, we didn't do tours on the field, on the ground. We did that virtually. We did that like this event. And gradually we started to go out again with small groups, bigger group, and now we do our activity for the public. Yeah, what else you think? There's one more point that I missed, but I think this is the situation. Yes, there is fear, but we don't have the privilege to give up or to stop. We have to go forward.
Okay, let's go to
But
Sean.
real quick, the follow-up was, do you feel that you're saying now that there are lawyers working with you, it's difficult for the stripping of citizenship, but my concern is that the repression is moving faster.
Yeah.
And the more and more that we have governments that are right wing, and even the alternative, it looks like the new government will probably still be right wing leaning, that the measures will be more repressive. So what may not be legal now for them to attack you and to strip you of citizenship or to repress the people will be legal in the next 5 years because of what's happening. We're seeing, for example, if you were to marry, and then in the early 1990s, if you were to marry someone from the West Bank, she would be able to come live with you. I think you said Faham. You live in Faham. Where are you living? In one of these cities.
Yeah,
So, for example,
yeah.
For example, now, like me, for example, like I have family that's West Bank and family that's Jerusalem, and we have a big problem because Beit Hanina is split between West Bank and Jerusalem. So when a person gets married to someone from the West Bank, it becomes a dilemma where they can live and things like that. And this was changed, I believe, in the 90s, and it's being renewed every 5 years. So the law catches up and it supersedes the repression, and it's made legal. And this is what I'm concerned about.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. The things go faster than what we think, and there are very smart laws that they can pass. They not talk clearly about taking the citizenship, but they can shrink your movement, your
Yes.
life, and this one of the laws that you mentioned. I can marry someone from the West Bank, but he or she cannot move to live with me in my house inside the Green Line. Of course,
Yes.
not to get citizenship, but the other Jews They can marry anyone from all over the
Yes.
world, and immediately they can get citizenship, and they move to live in Israel. But this brings me just to mention in very, very fast, the situation of the Palestinians inside Israel in these days are terrible from a different aspect, from different perspective. We live in these days in a very big catastrophe because of the mafia and criminal organizations
Yes,
that are
absolutely.
actually controlling the communities, the Palestinian communities inside Israel. And this thing is new to us. It's not part of our culture. It's not part of what we wanted to do with our youth and with our people. Now, I said that many years ago. Now, most of the people that are involved in preventing or stopping these crimes are sure that this is one of the governmental plans against the Palestinians inside Israel. They started mainly after the second intifada of 2000s, and the scale of and the number, the expansion of the number of murder and shooting towards Palestinian civilians started mainly in 2000, the year of 2000, and it's rising from year to year till today. Now we are in really catastrophe. Within 1 month and a half, now we are in the 22 of February, 26. More than 52 people were murdered just in 1 month and a half.
Wow.
It's like a I don't know.
It's deliberate. It's deliberate.
It is deliberate.
It's
It
absolutely
is.
deliberate. It's
It's
just
not only the Israeli police do nothing in order
Mm.
to protect us, which is for sure. It's not only that the Israeli police didn't do any effort to arrest these criminals. It's more. It's deeper than that.
Yeah.
It's systematic, planned approach of the Israeli government. It couldn't be that it happened suddenly, and the Israeli police didn't know about. They talk about 50,000 pieces of
Mm.
guns inside the Palestinian villages.
Yeah.
Before that, if anyone had a gun, illegal gun, you will be arrested immediately. The Israeli police know where these guns are, and they know now where these guns are, but they're not interested to collect that or to arrest the people that have guns. It doesn't make sense that these crimes take place only inside the Palestinian Arab communities. The neighboring Jewish community has nothing.
Mhm.
It's two different worlds in parallel. The Jewish community that live very close to the Arab community, this one live with under fire every day and night, and the Jewish community in other world, they don't feel that even. Sometimes they
Interesting.
hear the shoot and the complaint to the police that they are disturbed. The noise is too much. But it doesn't make sense. If you are a criminal, if you are a mafia, why it makes change to you if you target just me and not my Jewish neighbor?
Yeah.
The criminals
Thank you.
don't care. They want money. They want control. But how they make the line where are allowed to active? Who gave them the license to active in this place and not in the other one?
And this is why we say the Nakba continues for this very reason.
Exactly.
Joseph, before there was a text, I was monitoring the texting, and there's a person, Isabella K. I think she asked a good question. She said that Peace Catalyst International is planning a trip to Palestine in May. Can we have a tour with you? So, is there a way that we can just go to the website and is it to the website, or is there something they should contact? Maybe we could put it here in the chat.
Yeah, you can contact me directly, and you can through
And
the
I myself,
website.
if I'm back in the country, I hope I can, I would like to meet with you as well.
أهلا وسهلا.
أهلا شكرا
The
شرفنا.
tour is
put
amazing. Let's go to Rob.
Thank you, Joseph. I wrote in the chat my email, and Joseph had that. So
Yeah,
please.
I'll be happy to. Yeah. Rob,
Thank you, Joseph, and thank you, Umar, for an amazing presentation. I have two sort of related things I'd like to ask. The first is, when you're doing this amount of research and involved with this, I don't know how you survive mentally. The horror of just the what you've just spoken about, the bullying, the sadism and the deliberate hardships that are inflicted. Do you have support with that level? I'd be interested if you can talk a little bit about the emotional side of this, because it's very obvious. And secondly, I would like to be able to pray for you guys. And if there's anything particular that you really need support from, it would be really good to hear that.
Well, thank you very much for these words. Yeah, as a human being, we need support all the time. And in the personal level, in the emotional level, and the political level, yes, we do. Please continue speaking out and take in your mind all the time. The Palestinian case is crucial and urgent and must be raised in any opportunity. We as organization, we are actually small organization. We are depends on the years. We are about 7 people, and we try to do as much as we can in order to expose the Nakba. And we, in some cases, yes, I do feel that I'm exhausted emotionally. And I do these tours, this kind of lecture, very similar to what I see on the ground every week, and for different people. So on one side, I'm happy that I can do that. I speak out this case despite the effort of erasing and hiding and making that not interested or. But I feel on my spirit how it's difficult, and every time I find kind of excuse how I manage to do that. I don't know. I want to believe that I'm strong, but I'm not. In fact, people, if you can dig in my heart, you see how sensitive I am, and how the issue is really huge and bigger than human being can carry. But I think I get used. I try to make that between the emotional, political, national even, and the professional. I try to be as much as possible professional. And after I finish the 2 hours with the group, yes, I need the time to rest and to heal myself at home. And yeah, by chance, we just discussed that last week in the staff, and there is kind of advisor or consultant that we talk with him when we need. So thank you very much for your care and this notice. Yeah, it is important, and it's part of our life, but it's not the spoken one. It's just something that we deal with alone. But you are correct. It's thanks for your sharp eye that can notice that.
Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it. So yeah, you're a small group, but it's good to know at least you have some support, and you're aware of the need for looking after yourselves.
let's go to Sean and then Shlomo, and then I have some questions.
Okay. All right. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
you fixed your microphone.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Yeah. Anyhow, Umar, I have two questions. I'll just make it quick, but then we'll go to slow-mo. Um, First question is, do you travel and do you go into conference and talk about the Palestinian Nakba? Uh, like, do you travel around and you go to places and get spread the word out? And the second question is, do you receive threats from the Israeli that if you go to any conference or if you say anything in their way they don't like, they send you a letter telling you that we will ruin your career if you go in this conference in this meeting, or they'll send you threats to discourage you from doing what you're doing, and threaten you. Are you also receiving this? Because recently, like, there's hysteria in the social media, like what Shlomo says about there's a big noise going on and there's a big hysteria about Israel, that there's so many Israeli underdog going on, like watching the internet and watching people what they're saying about Israel, like they're being so protective about what so this is my question to you, and yeah, these are my two questions, and uh, and yes,
Yeah,
thanks.
yeah. Thank you. Yeah, both answers are yes and yes. I go out and I can travel and can speak in conferences. In the last maybe 5 years, it was less than before, but I used to, yeah, to take part in many conferences, mainly abroad. We get threats, we get ugly messages in our website and social media. And sometimes when we do tour or lecture or other event, there are usually people that come intentionally to disturb and to attack and to maybe try to destroy the event. It happened a few times, but I have to say frankly that we didn't cancel any event because of that. We didn't stop any project because of that. But as I said in previous answer, that we try to make that in low profile. As I said, I don't use almost my private social media, but we do that through the organization, and in the social media of the organization, um, we got these threats. For 2 years, we just even took out the names of the staff and the addresses of ours from the website, because we know that we are under these eyes of these fascists and observers that look for any mistake or anything to catch us or to meet us. But as I said, for now, we feel the threat. We take some security
Yeah, they'll do
steps,
whatever
but yeah, yeah.
they'll do whatever to ruin your career or ruin your reputation, whatever they could. Yeah. Just I want to add something. Some guy said they're being so protective about the Israeli narrative, the Israeli Zionists, and one guy made a metaphor for it on the internet. Don't forget what he said. He said the Zionist narrative is like a house of cards. You know those cards that you play cards with, like you play solitaire or whatever? It's like the Zionists build this house of card, like stack them on top of each other, and they're worried that even a small blow or you blow onto it, it will all collapse. And this is why they're so scared of that, because they don't want anybody to blow on that house to bring it down, because it's so fragile that they have to be so protective to not let that house of card fall down, and like any little blow will just ruin it. Yeah. Anyway.
Wow. Thank you
All
for
right,
that.
Shlomo.
Okay.
Two quick questions. One, I'm just curious about the painting by Nahum Gutman of Tel Aviv, of the Ahuzat Bayit, where he shows all of this empty space. So, just for my understanding, there was no, at the time in the early 30s, there was no empty space at all, or he exaggerated with it? Or how would you, where are we on that? And then I have another question, quick one.
In that piece of land that he showed in painting, it was all full with Palestinian neighborhoods. It's the photo that I showed you from Jaffa. From Ahuzat Bayit to the center of the old city of Jaffa, it was all built up. They
So
never,
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Did they have to erase, I mean, to expel or to do something with the locals to move them in order to build Tel Aviv? Or
no,
okay,
the houses of Tel Aviv, which is Ahuzat Bayit at that time, were built in orange, how you call it, orchards in English, yeah,
yeah,
and fields and on the beach. So it was a piece of land that was bought from Palestinian family
okay.
or the Ottoman government for the Ahuzat Bayit. But what is between Ahuzat Bayit or the beginning of Tel Aviv and the center of Jaffa, of the old city of Jaffa, all this area was built up.
I understand. Okay. Another quick question for you. Do you know Miko Peled? Have
Of
you?
course,
Oh,
yes,
okay.
he's a good
Okay.
friend and
Okay,
could
great. So yeah, so probably he has your presentation, or maybe send him your presentation. It's a very important one.
good idea. Thank you. Yeah.
I have a question for you. You said that 40% of the Palestinians were expelled before May 15, 1948. That was my understanding based on what you're saying. Were there were several organizations. There was Lehi, the Irgun, the Etzel, and the Haganah. Are there documents that specifically refer to specific leaders who came up with that policy of expulsion of the Palestinians?
Yeah. Well, to make that point clear, 40% of the whole Palestinian that had been expelled were expelled before May 15th. I mean, among the 750,000, the
Right.
40% were expelled already before the declaration of the State of Israel. Some of the leaders I wrote I read and I brought some quotes of them, but famous or more well-known names beside Ber Katzenelson and Yosef Weitz and others. Elon Papi considered David Ben-Gurion as the master chef of the transfer. Uh, uh, the leaders of the Lehi, Yitzhak Shamir, who became Prime Minister of Israel, the leader of the Etzel, Menachem Begin, that became Prime Minister of Israel. By the way, both were considered by the British law as terrorists, and they were wanted by the British government. Yitzhak Rabin himself, he was the soldier, the officer that brought the order to expel the population of Lid and Ramli in July 1948. He acknowledged in an interview to Avi Shlaim in the 80s that he expelled 3 Palestinian villages in the Hula Valley to Syria in the 60s, in the 50s, 56. And he even said that we kicked them out and we forced them to sign that they left by their own, or something like that. I think all the Israeli leaders took part in the expulsion of
What
the
about Moshe
Palestinians.
Sharet?
Well, I don't know about him. I don't know about him.
Okay.
He was the second prime minister, right? After
For a short time.
for a short time.
And his son came to Israel, and he published a long article in Haaretz, where he described he was there. He was a young officer in the Negev, and he expelled Palestinians to Gaza. And he came back and he wrote in this article that it was a sin, that Israel was born in sin. And basically, I think he felt regret. He was already 90 years old. That's the son of Moshe Sharet. I forget his first name, but something to look into in Haaretz. I may try to dig it. But anyway, that's all I know. But Sharet was in good relations with in Tzfat with the Palestinians, and he was more peace oriented, which is why he didn't stay for a long time as a Prime Minister.
My other question is Israeli historians that document the Nakba. Could you tell us the names of the Israeli historians that documents the Nakba?
Ilan Pape is the first
Yeah.
one.
Well, first of all, as a reader of these books, you can understand that they write about the Nakba without saying that they write about the Nakba. They just bring documents as historians, but the understanding of these documents are very valuable in order to understand the Nakba. I refer to Benny Morris. Benny Morris was known in the 90s when he wrote a book that the title of the book is the problem of the Palestinian refugees 1947-48, and he published a very valuable document that describes how the Israelis occupied and expelled Palestinians from these places, and he did that later on. This is Ilan Pape. Okay. Later on in an interview, he said, I brought this as historian. As Israeli, I support that. I agree with what they did in 1948. He meant the expulsion of Palestinians. He said, like me, there is no chance to create or build Jewish state without expulsion of Palestinians. And I agree with him in this aspect. But he didn't mean to document the Nakba. He just brought the military documents. Other historian, Hillel Cohen, he also talks about the Zionism and Palestinian history and the relationship between them, and he's a professor in the Hebrew University. He doesn't say that he's anti-Zionist or not Zionist, but he documents also the Nakba. But the clear approach of documenting the Nakba in order to bring the Nakba to the awareness and the knowledge of the people, we can mention Ilan Pape, and Shai Hazkani, Noga
Sorry.
Kadman. Who's this?
This is the Hebrew version of Ilan Pape.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
much better than the English one.
Yeah. Alon Confino. Yeah, I think these are the pioneers in this field, documenting the Nakba without any excuse or any explanation. Because many of the writers or filmmakers, for example, like Tantura film, or the book of Adam Raz that talked about the looting of the Palestinian property. In the interviews later on, they just, they excused their work, but they said, we are still Zionists. We brought that as research or something like that, but we are still Zionists. So there are some Zionist writers that you can get benefit from them to understand the Nakba without meaning that by them. And there are some Israeli or former Israeli historians that really want to make that clear, that what happened with the creation of the State of Israel, and not with even, it's for the creation of the State of Israel, these crimes had been committed by the Zionist movement and the State of Israel. So Ilan Pape and Sheikh Haskani and Alon Confino, Gadi El Ghazi, I think these names that I remember now.
In the
Rabbi
introduction, I don't think it was clear. You have a discussion there about imagining reenactment of the Palestinian return.
Right.
Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, it's a process that we started, I think, at least 10 years ago, exposing the idea of the right to return of Palestinian refugees. We support the right to return, and we want people to talk about the right to return. and despite the efforts of Israel and the United States just to kill this hope of return. And we started to put the issue not as a discussion if there is a right or there is not, but to imagine how the return could be implemented and how the land and the country and the landscape will look like with return, how the return will affect our lives, the culture of the area, what kind of political regime or entity should be in order to obtain and maintain justice and equality for the people that will live in that place. So we had different workshops and different groups that gave different models and ideas for return. And we learned very significant things regarding that, because most of the people, even those that support the right to return, even among Palestinians and among our Palestinian people and NGOs, and of course the PA and even the PLO, they don't talk about the actual return, the real return, how it will look like, what you offer to the international community in order to implement the right to return, where the people will live, what we do with the Israelis that live on the top of these places and lands that the refugees own, actually, according to the international law. What we will say to the Palestinian refugees when we show them that that Palestine in their perception is not there anymore. The Israelis colonized this area for about 80 years now, and they changed almost everything. The places, the houses, the villages are not there. There are new towers and new modern Israeli architecture, if there is something like that. Everything was actually, almost everything was destroyed. So we invite people, Israelis and Palestinians, to imagine the area or the country after the return. It was difficult for both sides, by the way. They all support the right to return, but it was difficult to how to do that. So we learned that the implementation of right to return is not one formula. It's not one way. We use maybe rights or returns, not only one kind of return. Places that are still empty, maybe it's easier to imagine that we can rebuild the destroyed Palestinian village, but we should take in consideration that the population was increased about 10 times since 1948, so you need to find place for all of them. And the new generations don't want to return to be farmers like their grandfathers, so we should think about the modern way of life. I think these are very important and challenging questions when we think about the future, because avoiding the right to return would not lead to any solution, to any peace, or to any quietness in this place. This is my belief.
Sorry, your organization is in Hebrew it's called Zochot, which means remember.
Right.
Or we remember. Are your organization support or talk about expulsions of Jews from Palestine or Israel? What is your...
No, not at all. This is one of the results of the and the products of these workshops talking about return. We have two conditions. One is supporting the full right to return, and the other condition, the return should not lead to expulsion or mass expulsion of Jews from the places that they live in. Even when I did a workshop with Palestinian refugees from refugee camps in the West Bank, that was, and even from Lebanon and Syria, we made a workshop. I didn't hear from them mass expulsion of Palestinians, of Jews. these workshops and putting the correct questions, not to avoid, not to deny, to support, but to think in creative way how you can implement, how you can build this landscape, including the return, will give you the freedom to think about, for example, thinking about joining, for example, the city of Tel Aviv, the refugees of Sheikh Mouanis, for example, and Salame and Jammasin were under Tel Aviv today. And if they want to return, they will see the University of Tel Aviv and neighborhood in north of Tel Aviv. They will not. I don't suggest our organization don't. And even the refugees themselves didn't say we want to destroy the University of Tel Aviv. They said we can we can build our homes in the closest place to our location. For example, the huge park that called Hayarkon Park in Tel Aviv is part of the lands of Sheikh Mouanis. So they can build there some neighborhood. The University of Tel Aviv can acknowledge that it was built on the houses and the lands of the people of Sheikh Mouanis, so they can compensate them. They can acknowledge that maybe they can how you call that, rent the land from the people of Sheikh Mouanis. By the way, there is a very fantastic example, I think, in New Zealand. There was similar example. The Dutch, that colonized that place, they built a university and they destroyed or expelled part of a village. And in the post-colonial era, the university acknowledged the ownership of these people on the land of the university, and they paid for them compensation for the past time, and they continue to pay them rental fee for using their land. There are many options of solutions to certain places how the return could be implemented. Of course, the Israelis and the Israeli side and the colonizers should acknowledge the right of these people on their lands and on their life in this place. So as I said, if it's empty place, it's easy to rebuild places. If it's big city, you can join the big city. Who decided that Israelis and Palestinians should live separately? The segregation came with Zionism. Before that, we didn't have in Palestine a Jewish town or Muslim town, or no, maximum maybe in the big cities there are neighborhoods, but it was mixed life. The population was mixed.
Yeah, the same in the Arab world too. In the Arab,
the same in Arab world till today. So this segregation and racism is new for Palestine. So we can return, not physically just people to return. We can return the culture, the correct relationship between people, between a human being that can sit and live in the same place, and they can share the same cities.
inshallah.
Inshallah.
And also, you remember Baghdad. Baghdad itself was 1/3 Jewish. It's the residents of Baghdad. Huge. One of the. Other thing. Yeah. The other thing.
Omar, I wanna thank you.
Oh, I was gonna. Okay.
You have another question?
Yeah, I was gonna say, but in regards to the right of return, people focus on the Palestinians that live like in the out like Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan. There's a person I follow on Instagram who's actually very interesting. He's a young man. His name is I believe Sharif Saidi or something, and he lives in Nasr in Nazareth.
Sharif Safadi.
Sharif Safadi, and he's really good to watch, and I've learned so much from him. And I learned that 1/3 of the people who live in Nazareth are actually refugees, and his village, I can't remember the name of the town, 20 kilometers away from Nazareth. And so he and his family, even as Israeli citizens, they don't have the right of return to their villages. So the issue is not just Palestinians who are refugees in other countries, but the Palestinian citizens. And maybe Umar can tell me this. What's the percentage of citizens Palestinian citizens of Israel who are actual refugees in the sense that they were displaced and moved to other areas?
About 25%.
About 20.
Yeah.
I knew it was about
Yeah.
one. I said it was about 1/3. So about 1 in 4 Palestinians.
Yeah, it's between 25 to 30%. Yeah, it was also in the slide. And yeah, he's correct. You are correct that the citizenship didn't help the Palestinians inside Israel to return.
The other issue is that when we talk about how many new Palestinian towns or cities have been built since 1948, is it because I always use this to say, like, we see thousands of stuff, like in Jerusalem, for example, I live next to Pisgat Ze'ev, and I see, we had to wait 10 years to get a permit. Meanwhile, I seen 20,000, units for Jews being built right 2 blocks away from me. So what is, do you know?
Yeah, great point. Yeah, I use that always for different arguments. Israel built, since it was established, about 1,000 towns for Jews and 0 for Palestinians.
Yeah, it is 0. Okay.
Except 5, I call them townships. It's not for development or the interest of the population. It's just to concentrate the Bedouin in the.
It was a relocation when they relocated them
exactly,
to
relocation in order to confiscate their land.
Wow. Okay.
Because they don't want to live in the wide land that they owned before the creation of the State of Israel. They want to concentrate them, to destroy their culture, and to force them to live in cities or in towns, and to take to steal their lands. This is a very important point to see how this apartheid regime works.
Yeah. Because the what you mentioned in the Negev, when they relocated people to confiscate their land, they're actually using this as an example. You see, we're building up new Palestinian towns, and these are just basically relocations, and some of these towns are actually just being recognized because some Arab towns are not recognized. I remember there was a case of Ain Hud. Ain Hud back in the 90s, it wasn't a recognized town, and later I'm not. Is it? Yeah, interesting. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's amazing story on Hod by itself. It's wow. And the original Palestinian and Hod houses are still existing. What had been recognized as Ain Hod, the new Ain Hod, is not. They are not living in their own houses. They live on their lands, but about 10 minutes far away from the original houses. The Palestinian houses of Ain Hod are settled in these days by Israeli liberal artists.
Oh yeah, they turned it into an artist kibbutz or something where they So we have many amazing examples to explain how this really apartheid system works here in Israel without naming that as apartheid. Just one final word about Gaza. In these days, we have a ongoing working group that think about the day after in Gaza. And we invite people not to stop on thinking about only stopping the genocide or only rebuilding the camps or the towns in the Gaza Strip, and still concentrating 2 million Palestinians in this narrow place. About 70% of the people in Gaza are actually refugees from 1948 places. We call for their return to their original places as the further step after renovating what Israel had destroyed in the last 2 years.
All right. Thank you so much, Omar. It was a great presentation, very eye-opening. Thank you for your generosity and your time to educate us. And I think we should do it again sometimes, because people have to know about the history of Palestine and Israel, and what really is preventing peace is that history. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
Appreciate
it.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.